So one of my popular videos is how to divide ranunculus, when they finished flowering at the end of the summer and you dig them up and you can divide the corms. And I did a video on that a couple of years ago now, and it still gets regular sort of turnover. People are still interested in looking at that video. So I thought, and I didn't see anything out there about anemones and how you can do the same with anemones. Of course, their corms are different. They're more like tiny little potatoes, and they're kind of quite difficult to navigate. They're difficult to see which way round they are. But I decided, because I had some anemones that had already sprouted in milder climates like mine, a temperate climate, my anemones have already started growing ready for flowering next spring. So what I thought I would do was, I didn't want them here where I'd because I'm constantly remodeling my garden, I'm always moving plants about and they never really get a home. So they're so homeless, these poor things. And as you can see, I've got 2 in tubs and 2 in this oil barrel here, this wine barrel or whiskey barrel or whatever you call them. And so what I wanted to do was move them all. And while I was doing that, I thought it would be a great opportunity to show you how to propagate them. The truth is, you don't need to do this. They actually just propagate themselves. But if you're moving them, or you find that a clump is too dense and you want to introduce some to another part of your garden, then this is the video. I'll show you how to do it. So when you dig them up, you are going to have to sort of try and feel around without damaging them. Now corms, because they grow like potatoes, they grow at different levels. There's some, because they sprout from the roots, they grow lower, some are lower down in the soil and some are up closer to the surface. And you'll notice that as you're trying to sort of get all the soil off them, they are not sort of all necessarily in one big clump at the same level. So that just requires a little bit of care as you're sort of going through the soil and the clump to see what's there. So the easiest way to determine whether it can be split is if there's 2 separate shoots, just as there was there. Each piece of corm that you're going to split must have its own roots and its own shoots. So this is actually a job that's quite hard to do if the corm hasn't sprouted, because it's really difficult with anemone corms to see which way round, which way up, where's the roots, where's the shoot going to come from. So it's actually a job that's much easier done when they have already sprouted like these. So that would mean you probably wouldn't do this if you were pre-sprouting shop-bought corms, okay, that you just bought in a packet from the shop, and you're pre-sprouting them in spring. They haven't had time really to grow new corms, so you're not going to be separating those. What you're doing is you're separating them from the next year. And if what happens is they will pre-sprout again after they've finished flowering. And so it's October now, and as you can see, I've got these nice new shoots ready for flowering next year. And now those previous corms have grown new corms. I hope that makes sense. As you can see now, instead of just having one little shop bought corm, I've got a little cluster of corms, like a little cluster of potatoes. And it's from here that we can look and see what can be separated. And as I said, you're looking for a shoot and roots, and the corms are really tiny. So you're used to buying them, at a certain size from the shop in the packet. But new corms, as you can see here, are teeny tiny. By the way, I just threw that in the bucket, not on the floor. I have a bucket of water because I don't want them to dry out. So this was quite a big clump with nice new shoots. I was able to separate these, and that's going to enable them to, when I replant them, to be able to spread and just grow even more and just thicken up. And, I'm just going to have a really good stock of anemones from now on. But this is a perfect example of a tiny new baby corm with a lovely, lovely healthy root and new growth. So we know we've got a whole new anemone there. And over the coming years, this will develop a huge clump of other corms and flowers in the spring. So just as a general rule, even if you've got a big clump of corms, it seems like a big clump, but only one shoot, I just wouldn't bother trying to separate that, because it's just a minefield knowing where the shoots are going to be coming out of. So I would just leave that. But something like this with an obvious shoot, obvious roots, perfect. That's a perfect example of a new anemone. And I had quite a few. Some clumps I couldn't separate. Another tip actually, some of the clumps I couldn't separate because the roots were so entangled. I just didn't want to damage them, because I would have damaged the shoots as well. So it was no big deal. I just left those. They just will stay as one clump. That's fine. But as you can see, some of them just came away really nicely, and so I had these new baby anemones ready for planting up. On a note about planting up, if you are going to put them in pots, I see people talking about it a lot, and I see it on the packets, put them in pots. They don't actually do that well in pots. I mean, they can do well in pots. It really all depends on your climate. So you're going to have to think about what's suitable for them. But I found neither ranunculus or anemones do that great in pots. Now, that could be because I have a milder climate, and so in the pots they got hotter sooner than they would in the ground. So let's put some context to that. Anemones and ranunculus really like cool conditions for growing, like those cool snapdragons you hear about too. That's why they flower in the earlier part of the summer, late spring, early summer, because they like it cool. The moment it starts to get hot in that midsummer heat, they start to flag and they just give up the ghost. So if you think about putting them in pots, all that's happening is your pot is a smaller mass of earth. And I put them in tin pots as well, which was a disaster. And that is going to heat up a lot faster and a lot sooner than the cool earth. So what you're really doing is you're advancing their conditions into midsummer before they've even had a chance to flower. They're going to get much hotter. They're just going to become distressed. Their leaves will turn yellow. If they flower at all, the flowers will be small because they're going to struggle, and they will certainly peter out much more quickly, and they just won't give you the lush display. Of course, if you're going to nanny them, fuss them, put them in buckets of cool water to stop them getting hot, and doing all sorts of things to counteract the heat in the pots, then they will be fine. But I mean, who wants to do that? So I certainly don't. So my general opinion is, and it does depend on your climate, your conditions, and even each summer, because it seems to me each spring and summer is so different as well. Generally speaking, I would advise putting them just straight into the ground. That's where they like it. They are woodland plants. They are bred from woodland plants, which grow in the shade underneath the trees in the woods. So bear that in mind when you're thinking about their conditions. And as I say, just avoid pots. But that's, if you really want to put it in a pot, do, but just bear in mind you're going to have to make extra effort to keep that pot cool, whether you keep the pot in a shaded position or, I don't know how you keep it cool, but just bear that in mind. Now, here we are with my final clump. I thought this was good footage I got here. What I did, which made it easier as well, is if you do have any weeds, just remove all the weeds first, because if you don't do that, you get tangled. And I did damage one of the plants trying to pull it around a weed. So each time I got a clump, I would in fact remove the weeds first. And as you can see, this is better footage when I was back at my potting station, which I built this year. So if you want to see that video, check my video list below. And there you go. That's it, really. I mean, what else is there to say? You don't need to do this job, but you can if you want. And if you are going to do it, just remember that each new baby corm needs roots and shoots, and then you'll be on your way to happy anemone growing. Okay, I hope that was really helpful. Hope I didn't go on waffling too long. I hope you got the gist of it. If you don't, or I missed something, just ask me in the comments and I will get back to you. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye.